Who better than a natural born goblin to talk about the importance of charisma? We know I got it in spades. Look at you, good looking viewer. It's clear you have the magic touch too. We often cover MMOs on this channel, but I want to talk today about this stat that influences RPGs as a whole. From your basement dwelling D&D party to your 8th playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3 to rolling an enchanter in Monsters and Memories, it would not be the same without charisma. And speaking about Monsters and Memories, I know the devs are just itching to add Goblin Bards. I mean, come on, it's a sure thing. Hole in one, donezo, right? Anyway, I see a lot of new players often misunderstand charisma. They underestimate it, or treat it as a secondary stat, useful only for dialogue flavor, but not essential to success. Strength kills enemies, dexterity avoids danger or gives you more armor class. Because of that, many players see charisma as optional, something to invest in only if they want to roleplay a smooth-talking smuggler. This view misses the point. Charisma is not just about talking. As a proud enchanter main in EverQuest, I can tell you it's about complete control. Control over people, situations, outcomes, and the narrative itself. At its core, charisma represents a character's ability to influence the world through social power rather than a force. In many RPGs, this influence is as impactful as combat skills, sometimes even more so.
I cast vicious mockery, nat 20, let's go. You're a shot, motherfucker, and nobody likes you. Shot! Everybody says, fucking short that guy is. And that stops you from forming meaningful relationships.
A high charisma character doesn't just react to the game world, they help shape it into their own twisted machinations. One of charisma's greatest strengths is that it multiplies the options available to you. While combat stats usually determine how you solve a problem, charisma determines whether you have to solve it at all. And I like that. And if there's anything I like, it's being able to completely avoid doing something. A strong fighter may be able to defeat a bandit leader, but a charismatic character might convince that bandit to stand down, or join forces, provide information, or even walk away entirely. In mechanical terms, this means fewer fights, less resource spending, and often better rewards. It's a win-win. In narrative terms, it means agency. Call back to another video, isn't that clever? Many RPGs reward charisma with access to alternative quest resolutions. They're not just nice endings, they're often the optimal ones. You actually may gain extra gold, unique items, allies, or long-term benefits that brute force can't provide. In games like Fallout New Vegas, Baldur's Gate, or even Disco Elysium, high charisma, or its equivalent, can bypass entire combat encounters and unlock story branches unavailable to other builds. This makes charisma a strategic stat, not just a cosmetic one. The tricky thing about this is that combat power is obvious and immediate. Everybody can tell what's happening. Social power, unlike myself, is quieter, but more flexible. Charisma allows players to manipulate systems that exist outside hit points and damage numbers, faction reputation, NPC loyalty, political alignment, and moral outcomes. High charisma characters often gain better prices from merchants, easier access to restricted areas, and more favorable quest rewards. Over the course of a long RPG, these benefits stack. Saving money early means better gear later. Gaining allies early means support in critical moments. Avoiding conflict preserves resources and reduces risk. Let's take an example from Dungeons and Dragons. So for charisma-based characters in there, so let's say a bard or a paladin even, often become party leaders not just because they are strong, but because they manage interactions. They negotiate with kings, intimidate enemies, deceive rivals, and inspire allies. The party's success frequently depends on these moments. We touched on this earlier, but one of the most important functions of charisma is that it increases player agency. Agency is the feeling that your choices matter, that the game responds meaningfully to what you do. Charisma-heavy dialogue systems tend to offer clearer cause and effect relationships. When a charisma check succeeds, the world changes because of you, not because the script demanded it. An NPC changes their mind. Conflict resolves differently. Information becomes available that was previously hidden. This reinforces the player's sense of authorship over the story, and that feels good. In contrast, low charisma playthroughs often funnel players into violence that, I'm not typically against. There's nothing wrong with a little violence, a little mayhem, but it also comes with its own rigidity. This can be exciting, don't get me wrong. Slicing some throats, stabbing some people in the back, that can be a fun time, but it is narrower. Charisma expands the decision space. Even when dialogue checks fail, they often fail in interesting ways, creating new problems instead of dead ends. Games that respect charisma treat it as a key to narrative depth rather than just a shortcut. Now, don't get me wrong, charisma is not automatically safe or easy. In many RPGs, social skills involve risk. A failed persuasion attempt, for example, can anger an NPC, close off dialogue options, or even escalate situations. This makes charisma engaging to play because it introduces tension without relying on just combat. Unlike strength and dexterity, which tend to function a little bit more predictably, charisma operates in uncertainty. You don't always know what that NPC truly wants or how they will react. This uncertainty makes social encounters feel dynamic and alive. Good RPGs also avoid making charisma an I win button, as much as I like those. The best systems require context, reputation, prior choices, faction standing, or role consistency. A silver tongue only works if your actions back it up. This balance keeps charisma powerful without making it trivial. Another thing you may want to consider, my friends, is that choosing charisma as a primary stat fundamentally changes how the RPG plays, how the game feels to play. Combat-heavy builds focus on optimization, positioning, damage output. Charisma-focused builds emphasize on preparation, observation, conversation, exploitation. Players start paying attention to NPC motivations, political tensions, and moral gray areas that they can manipulate. Dialogue stops being filler and becomes part of the gameplay. Quest design reveals its depth when persuasion, deception, and intimidation are viable tools. This is why many players describe charisma playthroughs as more immersive. They're forced to engage with the game world as a social system rather than a series of combat arenas that they just plow through. Just like me with the ex-wife. Now, a major reason that charisma is undervalued, in my opinion, is poor implementation. Some RPGs reduce it to extra dialogue lines that lead to the same outcome. When persuasion merely changes the wording, but it doesn't change the results, players learn to ignore it. This is a design failure, not a flaw in the stat itself. When charisma checks don't meaningfully alter outcomes, players correctly conclude that combat stats are more efficient, and they would be correct. And before anybody says, actually, in the comments, I'm correct, let's move on. The best RPGs avoid this trap by tying charisma to systems, not just conversations. Factions, reactions, world states, companion loyalty, and long-term consequences, we love to talk about those on this channel, should all respond to social influence. When they do, charisma becomes indispensable. And speaking of companions, companion systems are another area where charisma shines. High charisma characters often gain deeper companion interactions, prevent conflicts within the party, or even unlock unique companion arcs. Leadership, empathy, I actually don't know what that one means, but I was told to include it, and persuasion matter when managing a group of distinct personalities. In many RPGs, charisma affects morale, loyalty, and even combat effectiveness through buffs or support abilities. This reinforces the idea that charisma is not passive. It actively strengthens the party as a whole, not just the individual character that has it. Good RPGs increasingly emphasize choice, consequence, and narrative complexity. As games move away from linear storytelling, social systems become more important. Charisma is the stat that interfaces directly with these systems. In a well-designed RPG, charisma is the bridge between player intent and world response. It allows players to express values, manipulate outcomes, and shape stories without always resorting to violence, even though it's a pretty good choice. This doesn't make charisma superior to other stats, but it does make it foundational. I keep coming back to these words. A game that ignores charisma potentially limits itself. A game that embraces it becomes richer, more flexible, more alive. To wrap things up, charisma in RPGs is not just about being charming for its own sake, even though that's what I am, pure charismatic presence. But it's about power, the power to influence, redirect, and redefine situations. It offers alternative solutions, deeper agency, and broader control over the narrative. When implemented well, charisma is as impactful as combat skill, sometimes more so. It turns dialogue into gameplay, relationship into resources, and words into weapons. Players who invest in charisma are not avoiding challenge, they are engaging with a different kind of challenge, one that rewards awareness, timing, and understanding rather than raw numbers. In the end, charisma matters because RPGs are not just about fighting monsters, even though that is pretty fun. They're about navigating worlds filled with other people in them. In those worlds, the ability to move others is one of the strongest abilities that a character can have. And speaking of moving characters, I know that this amazing, exciting video has compelled you to move your hand and click on that marvelous, glorious like and subscribe button so that you can do as I say. Provide much necessary support for this channel. Until next time, my name is Squats. You can catch me on all the socials.